本节目由美国加州奥克兰市英记10家赞助播出，地址：奥克兰市第9街387号，订餐电话510-465-1888。
None of them were armed. So, well, it's out there. Sergeant Ron Helis. He's a 54-year-old, 29-year veteran of the sheriff's office. He's married with a grown son, and as I've said several times, he went in there to save people and made the ultimate sacrifice.
Sheriff, is there a commonality with the civilian victims, whether in age or gender or some other demographic or even by location within the crime scene where they're located?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, I once they get inside, you use the word random, and I think that it appears to be random inside. I don't think he was targeting people. We could do a further investigation that could prove to be true, but it doesn't appear to be that way at this point.
What is the plan? When and where he brought the gun?
Pardon me?
Do you have a clue when and where he purchased the gun?
Our partners at ATF are currently in the process of investigating that for us.
枪手大概是一个50岁的人，曾经是做过海军陆战队。那现在枪支的来源正在调查当中。现在您看的是直播。那么警察有一个牺牲的。
It's lost a hero. It's lost a great human being. It's part of the loss again of the 11 other victims that are in there, and it's all part of the suffering that we're all going to go through as family members and parents and brothers and sisters.
这是派出所的警察吧？
Senseless
牺牲的。
Sheriff, what is your message?
He was within a couple years of retiring. Yes.
Can you talk about any training that these deputies may have been through recently to go in there? Were they prepared?
We do ongoing active shooter training with all of our personnel. In our county, we train with our firefighters also. So if we need medical rescue, we take our firefighters in with us. So it's an ongoing training that we've been doing for years.
他介绍包括消防队员都经过相关训练。
It's my understanding, and again, don't hold me to this, that there's one other minor gunshot injury, and there's somewhere between 8 and 15 other injured, mostly cuts from jumping out of windows, diving under tables. They're relatively minor compared to everything else.
Sheriff, what's your message to?
有的人逃出来的是从窗户里面跳出去的。 那么他们现在是在一个酒吧里面跑出来的。
The patrons exited out of all those. They ran out of back doors. They broke windows. They went through windows. They hid up in the attic. They hid in the bathroom. So unfortunately, our young people or people at nightclubs have learned that this may happen, and they think about that. Fortunately, it probably saved a lot of lives that they fled the scene so rapidly. Not that. He was the victim of, he was a victim of a battery in January of 2015. It wasn't here. It wasn't at this bar.
What bar was it?
At a different bar.
Do you know what bar it was?
I don't.
You found his...
Yeah, it was in Thousand Oaks. I can't remember which bar it was.
He drove to the car, he drove to the bar in his mom's car, is that accurate?
I'm not sure whose car it is. He drove to the bar in a car. I'm not sure who it's registered to.
Do you know which car that is on scene?
Yes, we do.
Any other evidence within the car?
We're still obtaining a search warrant to do that. We're not allowed to go in without the warrant.
Do you know how long that shooting lasted from when he first opened gunfire?
No, I don't.
Are there any concerns with that car at this point?
No, we put the bomb dog by it and everything, and we feel comfortable. I was just standing by it, so we're good. We'll be here for 15 or 20 hours at least. We still need to go through and identify. Our FBI partners are doing a great job. They brought in their expert evidence team. They're flying people in from Quantico to do the scene. So we'll be here a long, long time. Like hell.
Can you tell us the sex of the victims that they showed?
No, we don't have those things identified yet. We have the house secured. We go in, we secure the house, we make sure everything's safe in there, and then we go ask the judge for a search warrant to search it more thoroughly. So we feel safe that it's secured right now.
Was there anyone else at the house?
Have you reached out or made contact with any of his relatives? And have they indicated that there was something that may have been at least leading up to this?
We've had some conversations with some family members, and it would be premature to talk about that. It's still part of the ongoing investigation.
Do you plan to stay on until the investigation?
No, I'm no longer the sheriff, but tomorrow at midnight. But I will certainly be a part with the family.
Can you share more on that, Sheriff? You're retiring tomorrow?
I am.
Sir, what is your message to families who still have loved ones unaccounted for?
We have a family center set up. They need to call the number, and we are expediting as quick as we can because my heart goes out to those parents and family members that don't know. So contact our family help center, and we will coordinate with you. And as soon as we have any information, it will be going right to the families.
Do you know the age range of the victims?
I don't.
For this to be one of your last days on the job, I mean, what's that like? What's going through your mind?
It can't be any worse.
And how's your department doing?
他可以说这个死人的情况可能继续增加。
He was a hard worker, and the hearts are broken all over.
He was also nearing retirement. What do you say to the fact that he didn't get there and this had to happen?
I just say a prayer for him and his family.
警察马上要退休了，结果在退休前牺牲了。
I don't know if it'll be me, but I think the next thing that would be important to you is when we can release victims' names, and we will do that as soon as we can. And if we can do it incrementally, we'll do that, so we don't have to wait. Because I imagine some of the identifications are going to take longer. So, but candidly, that's going to be at least a couple hours. Yeah.
Talk about the weapon one more time and what you can tell based on the weapon and what was recovered.
The weapon was a Glock 21. 45 caliber, and again the weapon was designed in California to hold a magazine of 10 rounds and one in the chamber, but he had an extended magazine on it, but we have no way to know how many rounds he actually had in there.
And that's illegal to have in California, that type of...
The extended magazine, yes. Correct. Yeah, the gun was legally purchased. At least that's ATF is looking into details for us. They don't have that for us yet. They're the experts. We have no idea. We have no idea. We don't know that. No, we have no idea. Don't know that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, you've just been listening there to Sheriff Jeff Dean describing what he now knows about the suspected shooter in this horrific massacre that happened at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, California. Here's what we know according to the sheriff. This young man's name is Ian Long. That is the house that police are now searching. A little history on Ian Long, according to Sheriff Dean. He had been involved in some kind of an altercation a couple of years earlier at a local bar. He, in April of last year, had displayed some, what the sheriff called irrationality. Mental health specialists were called to speak with him because he's a former United States Marine. Mm-hmm. There was some thought that perhaps he was going through PTSD. They cleared him of a 5150, which is generally a mental health
I think you would detain against your will for
against your will.
Time.
He was cleared of that, and we hadn't heard of him until today, until he is now being suspected in this massacre. The gun that was used in the shooting was a Glock 21 45 caliber handgun. It had 10 rounds. It holds 10 rounds with one in the chamber. Police also say that the magazine for that weapon had an extended clip. In other words, an extended magazine. They now do believe that he shot himself. He was not killed by law enforcement.
So, and we heard a few other things about what happened inside. We heard that there were possibly off-duty police officers in there. I mean, there were a lot of people in there at the time, and the sheriff there described parents saying that some of those off-duty police officers stood in front of their children to protect them. It's unbelievable.
And also the other thing that we'll just point out, we've been talking a lot about the hero, Sheriff Ron Healis. He was on the phone with his wife, but he hadn't called her before. There was reporting that he had called her before he went into this situation. He was actually on the phone with her when he told her, listen, I got to go because I'm responding to something here.
So this shot right here is a home in Newbury Park, California. This is whatever police found, it connected them to this house. So we don't know if this is his home or not, but they are searching the house now for additional evidence connected to the shooting. So joining us now to talk all about what we know, where the future of this investigation will go, is security analyst Paul Violas. So good to have you here, Paul. Because, I mean, you know all about this sort of thing. So, you know, let's just start out with sort of the basics. What we know so far, when you heard about this shooting, what were some of the questions that started to come to mind for you?
Actually, the first thing that came to mind was this is just about a year ago when we were together covering the Las Vegas shooting, and it was surrounding a very similar type of demographic of individual or group, that being a very large country western musical fair. So that was the very first thing that came to mind. And the second part is now also it was a large bar. So are we looking at another Pulse shooting? And did we actually have the shooter? So many things rush at that very first moment, as I'm sure with all of our viewers, and you see all this information. Clearly now that funnel has narrowed down considerably. So as opposed to at a point where a shooter has survived an incident, now with the shooter deceased, we're going to be looking at forensics and we're going to be looking at foreseeability.
So, Paul, stand by because we've got Carter Evans, our correspondent, who's on the ground there. He's going to join us, and just there he is. Carter, so you were also listening to that press conference. A couple of takeaways, Carter. I don't think anybody realized up until that moment where Sheriff Dean essentially said tomorrow he's retiring from the police force, that hero, Sergeant Ron Healis, was a great friend of his, that they worked out together. There are so many different aspects of this investigation.
现在我们继续跟进新闻。警察其中有一个警察牺牲，他刚刚马上要退休了。
Yes, this is very difficult for this sheriff. He was choked up at many times throughout the morning. He knew this sergeant very, very well personally. As for how they tracked down this gunman's identity, well, they found some evidence at the scene, and they were able to match that with his name. That led them to the house in Newbury Park, about 6 miles away from here. And I understand that they were trying to confirm his identity with a fingerprint, and it sounds like they were able to confirm his identity one way or the other, because that's how the sheriff was able to release his name. 28-year-old
警方是通过指纹找到那个人的，找到枪手。
the law before, but mostly minor things, traffic infractions. He was the victim of an assault at the bar. Recently, though, at a bar, and recently, though, sheriff's investigators say police were called out to his home for some reason, and they brought out a crisis intervention team because he was irate. We know he is a former Marine, and there is talk of that he may have been treated or being treated for PTSD. But as far as his motive for
开枪这个人呢，是有战后综合征的一个人。 那么某种程度上呢，是被定义是5150的，也就是说他是一个有威胁的一个精神病人。
I don't know too much about the house right now. I just know that it's not too far from here. He may have lived there with his mother. We're still trying to confirm that right now.
这个人跟他母亲是住在一起的。
Carter, there was something that Sheriff Dean mentioned. He mentioned that last April, as you pointed out, there was some kind of altercation. Mental health specialists arrived there to sort of take a look at him and talk to him, and that a 5150, they called it, was not secured. Now, for those of us in New York and across the country, explain what 5150 is.
好，现在再解释一下。是加州的5150是加州的一条特别一条法律啊。
What they are about to encounter. So we're learning more about this individual, and hopefully from that we'll be able to learn what his motivation for this was.
Right. Carter Evans on the scene for us in.
这条法律是1968年出台的。
Thank you. All right. So turning back to Paul now. Paul, so it's interesting because generally when
那么这条法律的规定，如果是抓到这样的人，可以有3天72小时，可以把他关起来评估，有3天的时间进行把他扣留、羁押这些人。
Will that be something that is taken a look at?
Rest assured, and I can tell you right now, Vlad assures that we are sitting here or standing here right now. That's happening as we speak. And that's going to be closely scrutinized as to how he got past the 5150. And for our viewers to understand, that is a very in-depth psychological analysis. And it looks to whether someone is a threat to themselves or to others. And it's a very, very in-depth look. Across the country, it's also known as a Baker Act.
5150的人不仅是威胁到他人，也威胁到他们自己。
To involuntarily commit an individual for those two reasons. So when they
这种是一种不情愿的不自愿的承认有精神病。
They've talked to him, he seems okay, you move on. No, you're saying it's a...
Right, normally it's 72 hours. Normally it's a 72-hour hold to assess whether or not this individual's a threat. So, and there are a variety of reasons for that. So when they say he's cleared, you can be sure that's going to go, law enforcement's going to go back right now. They're going to look at that. They're going to interview everybody. And they just said the FBI's team from Quantico.
警方可以扣一个人72个小时，3天。
I'm going to take a look at that. No question about it.
就是为了这个健康的原因来调查这些事。
I think really, Anne-Marie, what that told me was when they said, and the account was when he came into the building itself. Marines are exceptionally well trained in building entry. So when he came in, they showed him coming in, weapon up, and the first thing he did was go to the security guard to eliminate the force, right? Eliminate opposition. And then the second was to start looking across the room, as we were listening to the CBSN coverage earlier this morning, looking across the room as to where he was going to shoot. He was calculated. He used a smoke grenade in order to either cloud people, disorient people. We don't know exactly what it was. I mean, Vlad, your service, you know this too. It could have also been a flashbang, could have been loud to disorient and to keep people shocked, so he could have gotten a greater count when it comes to actually discharging the firearm. So when I heard that, it spoke tactical.
And what about this gun, this Glock 21 45 caliber gun with the extended chamber? What kind of gun is it? How easy is it to maneuver? How easy is it to hide?
It's relatively simple. It's not that heavy and it's not that big. Having that 10-round magazine, the magazine, if you figure, is about this big. One in the chamber. When an extended magazine, as the sheriff was saying, there are a variety of extended magazines, so it could have been 15 shots or more. We don't know. And we also don't know at this point, Anne-Marie, if he had other magazines with him. They haven't disclosed that. That's part of the forensic part, as Vlad was asking earlier. That's part of the forensic part of this investigation, because we're going to look right now to see shell casings and to see if they're the consistent shell casings or were there shell casings from other weapons we don't know about at this point.
One of the questions Anne-Marie and I were asking other
警方要经过进一步的这个侦查，也是痕迹侦查，才能够知道这个枪到底是一杆枪还是多杆枪。
I want to play for our viewers some sound of the witnesses who survived this shooting and what they had to say. Some really moving sound from a couple of women who were able to escape the bar. Let's listen.
At the bar, having fun, dancing, and then all of a sudden you hear like the bang bang of the gunshots, and it just started going crazy. And people were pushing. We thought it was a joke. We didn't take it seriously.
以为是一个开玩笑，谁知道是来真的。
Like, everyone just dropped down to the floor, and then, again, so I thought it was a joke, and we couldn't get out because the shooting was on that side.
然后呢，
so our friends got the bar
后来大家觉得不对劲，马上趴在地上，
so we could get out.
然后他们从窗户上逃跑出来。
That's how we were able to get out. They broke the window.
现在你看的是直播，这里是海外华人直播，正在直播当中。
Yeah, we're here. We're speaking with this young woman who was one of the ones who escaped. Were you able to see?
这记者是正在跟一个逃出来的一个人，情绪有点这个小女孩进行采访。
They're still missing. We don't know. We don't know where they are. We haven't heard from them.
How many were you?
It was a big group, like 15 of us. It's a big group. We're like a family. We all know each other. We're all friends. We're all.
15个人，他们这一帮朋友去玩。
You know, listening to those women, it's just absolutely heartbreaking to hear them because they're sort of still processing it as they're describing it, and as you can see, as she's describing it and realizing and understanding what she and her friends just lived through. The realization starts to hit and they start to break down. And I'm going to keep sort of focusing on this connection that the shooter may have had to this establishment because to me there's got to be some connection because you just don't randomly turn up at a place like that living only a couple of miles away from it.
Rest assured, Vlad, and I've been fortunate enough to work with you for a long time. We've done this before, and Anne-Marie, right? We've done this before. Without question, I will tell you unequivocally, when we go back, when we look at this 3-4 days from now, we're going to find he selected that particular location for a reason, he selected that day for a reason, and that time of the evening for a reason. There's no question about it. It's well calculated. Think of the tactical approach. Think of the planning that went into this, right? So, as the sheriff said, he didn't drive down the highway and decide he was going to pull in there. He went there for a reason. Now, it could have been the demographic of the individuals that were there. It could have speculated. It could have been the fact that there were a lot of college students there, and maybe he had some type of issue with college students. It could have been that he was a former Marine. There were other Marines there. Maybe there was an issue there. We don't know because one of the things we mentioned earlier, we still don't know how he was discharged from the military.
Right. Somebody asked the question of Sheriff Dean, and he didn't have the information.
And that's going to be part of the investigative process. Going back forensically, as you mentioned before, how was he discharged? That's going to speak volumes, right? Anne-Marie, you said it before during the break. It doesn't just happen. So how was he discharged? What was it like during his military service? And the big part, too, when he came out of the military, was he able to assimilate into society? And so all of this information right now, investigators are starting to focus on, break down who's going to be responsible for it, and we will learn more by tonight, by evening news. As we go into tomorrow, we're going to know a lot more than we do right now.
You know, you hear PTSD, and there was some speculation that maybe he might have been suffering from it when they met up with him in April. And I think people automatically assume that you have to somehow be in combat or in order to suffer from PTSD, but not necessarily.
No, not at all.
Reporters suffer from.
But I mean, in the military, you hear that, and sometimes, you know, you've heard, well, you didn't even see combat. How can you be suffering from PTSD?
Right. Well, in fact, Anne-Marie, some of the young ladies that we just saw
right
here at CBSN with this coverage, they're going to be suffering from PTSD. There's no think about what they just went through, right? I mean, and you mentioned it, Vlad. You know, the myriad of emotion from disbelief to fear to shock, right? And so.
I want to play another little bit of sound before we wrap this discussion up, because this is America today. We have learned that there were also individuals in that bar who were in Las Vegas. You and I were in Las Vegas in the wake of that shooting, which happened. We're just a couple of days away from that anniversary.
Right.
I want to play a bit of sound of what they had to say.
Just did everything I could to try and make sure that people coming out of the building were going in the right direction. If they were hurt, that we're doing whatever we could to get them going in the right direction, to get treatment. We knew his staging was not close, so that people that needed urgent attention needed to get taken to the staging area. And after we took a buddy of mine took the guy with the gunshot wound to the staging area. We went back closer, and we're just waiting to see if there's anyone coming out that need our help.
And from what I understand, this isn't the first active shooter situation you've been in?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the second time in about a year and a month that this has happened. I was at the Las Vegas Route 91 mass shooting, as well as probably 50 or 60 others who are in the building at the same time as me tonight. It's a big thing for us. You know, we all are a big family, and
unfortunately, his family got hit twice. You know, that's the I hadn't heard before because the sound was really bad.
Yeah.
And we were in the adrenaline
His
of
whole
reporting.
family was there.
50 or 60 people
Yeah.
that were in Las Vegas were
in the bar.
at this bar. Now, to me, and the way that he was sort of describing it as if it was, you know, you would think that he'd lead with that, oh my God, I was in a shooting similar to this last year. It was sort of like he's describing it calmly. This is the world that we live in right now, where the chances, the probability that an American will be a victim or survive a shooting like this is all too often common.
Vlad, this is very much the new normal. Yeah. I mean, I remember when we were covering the incident in Lower Manhattan, where the vehicle came, and one of the things that you said when you were covering, I remember this, was I ride my bike there.
Yeah.
You know?
Every day.
Right. These things that we should expect. I also like to say, though, when you see this, we see the worst in people, but we also see the best in people. We see cops, off-duty cops, that stood in front of other people as human shields. We see individuals like that, regular citizens, that did what they could to help evacuate. So as much as we saw the worst in a human being today, I think we also saw some of the best in people as well.
Certainly because of that, fewer people were killed and injured in this incident.
Those police officers, off-duty police officers that Sheriff Dean described in his press conference, who reports are that they shielded patrons there, and certainly Sergeant Ron Healis, who leaves behind a wife, an adult child, and as we heard from Sheriff Dean and from Ron Hosko, our also security analyst for CBS News, describing him the true definition of heroism and valor.
Without question. God rest his soul.
Indeed.
Paul, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So, coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at some of the other news happening today, including why Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is in the hospital right now. It's not that bad. She's going to be okay.
I was going to say, let's just make sure everybody knows she's okay.
Fractured ribs. We'll tell you about it. And we're also taking a look at what lies ahead for the Mueller probe now that Attorney General Jeff Sessions has resigned, and what the consequences could be for President Trump.
And we'll break that all down for you right here on CBSN. CBS News, always on.
I couldn't be prouder or more excited that our brokerage is taking over the administration of the Sunshine Coast Elves Club in this, its 50th anniversary. Lynn Nessman, the driving force behind the Elves Club for the past 6 years, will continue to be involved, but my colleagues and I at Remax City Realty in Gibsons will be raising money and distributing gift certificates this Christmas. You can donate online through the Elves Club website or purchase gift certificates from your favourite local businesses and drop them off at Remax City Realty's Gibsons office at 101 938 Gibsons Way. Or you can visit the Elves Club website for a list of other drop-off locations. Donations will all receive a tax receipt. Teamwork makes this dream work, which means volunteers are still needed. Visit elvesclub.ca for more info on how you can participate or to learn how you can apply for your own gift card hamper.
At this hour, parents are still looking for their kids. As you can imagine, there was so much confusion when the gunfire broke out. So joining us now is Jason Kaufman. His 22-year-old son, Cody, was inside the bar and is missing at this hour. Mr. Kaufman, thank you for being with us. We want to help you try to find your son, Cody. How do you know that he was in the bar?
He said goodbye to me last night before he walked out the door to go to Borderline.
And is that the last time you spoke to him?
That is the last time that I said goodbye to my son.
I see that you're at the hospital. Have you checked? What has the hospital told you about who's in there?
I am not at the hospital right now. I'm actually at the teen center where they tell the parents to go to basically wait for information.
Have you gotten any information?
I have not. I am in dark right now, and it's actually tearing me up.
Jason, we can only imagine how excruciating this is. The not knowing at this hour where your child is. Any parent can imagine the horror of that. Have you spoken to any of your son Cody's friends?
Actually, yes, I have. We got woke up last night around 1 in the morning by some of the girls, Cody's friends, knocking on our door, saying that there was a mass shooting at Borderline. Some of his girlfriends got out, but they didn't know where Cody was.
Did they describe to you anything about the scene?
Chaotic. Just like a normal shooting would be, it'd be very chaotic. There's only two entrances, or one entrance and then one little exit, so I would figure that a very crowded bar would be very chaotic.
What happens when you call his cell phone?
Nothing. It just rings and rings.
Where you are right now, where the parents are being, assembled, have they been able to tell you, is there a list of who's injured and who may be at the hospitals?
No, they have not released any names of any victims or anybody that's at the hospital. They won't say anything. My next step from here is to go to the hospital just to see if he is there.
Are you allowed to do that? Are police allowing you to go to the hospital to do this on your own?
I don't know, and I don't care, really. I mean, this is my son. If they have anything, then put themselves in my situation.
Tell us what we need to know to help you with Cody. Tell us about him.
Cody's a very outgoing boy. He very outspoken. I'm afraid that Cody ran to the gunman instead of ran away from the gunman. That's the kind of boy that Cody was or is.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was there helping, shielding anything or anybody that he could. I know that he went there with a few of his girlfriends, so I'm hoping that he's okay.
Of course. Did he go there often?
Yeah, it is a very local place where 18 and older can go, and they can basically just let loose and do a little country line dancing. So yeah, he goes there a couple times a week.
How old is Cody?
Cody's 22 years old.
Have you tried to go to the Borderline bar, the scene of the crime? Have you gone there yourself?
Absolutely. You are not allowed past a certain point. They have it roped off, and you're not allowed past a certain area. So I have definitely tried to make my way to the Borderline to see, but I have been turned around.
Jason, it's just excruciating. I mean, all of us, anyone who's a parent can imagine. I mean, the few times when we don't know where our children are, not even in these dire situations, it is horribly nerve-wracking, and you just feel sick in your stomach. And we can only imagine what you and your family are going through. Do you have a plan? What are you going to do next?
I don't have a plan. My plan is basically just wait, go to the hospitals, and hopefully get a phone call from my son or from one of his friends that he has contacted. He hasn't contacted anybody. Even his best girlfriends are out just waiting for him. So we're thinking that in the chaos he might have dropped his phone and ran. But I don't know. I'm hoping for the best, but I don't know what else to do.
I don't think there's anything else you can do. Jason, how many parents are there with you at that teen center?
There's probably about 20 people, 25 people.
And does anyone have any information?
Everybody is in the dark. Everybody that come here, we all are just waiting and hoping that we don't hear that name come across.
Are there authorities there with you?
There are, I think, a couple police officers here giving some interviews, but other than that, no.
Well, I mean, I guess my question is, are they updating you? What's going on inside there? Are there any authorities who are telling you anything?
No, they're not. It's just a waiting game. They tell you if they have information that they'll get back in touch with you. So that's all that's all we have.
Jason, does Cody have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, he does. He has 2 younger brothers and a baby sister on the way due the 29th of this month.
My goodness, you have your hands full. Yeah. Do you have one of the tracking apps on your phone to see where his phone is?
I do, and it's there.
It's at the club.
It's not moving. That's the problem.
So you can tell that his phone is at the club.
His phone is at the club, yes.
Yeah. Jason, how can we help you? How can we help you get the word out?
I don't really know. All I can say is, please say a prayer for the victims and for the loved ones that are where I'm at.
We are doing that.
We're just in a holding pattern. Just a holding pattern here.
Yeah. Well, I know that everyone listening is saying a prayer for you and for Cody and praying that you find him very soon and that all of the parents there with you at that teen center get some word very soon. Jason, we're thinking of you. Please come back to us when you hear anything.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that is the absolute worst situation you could ever be in.
We went up the other side of this house, the next door neighbor tried to knock on their door. We saw that he was clearly talking to investigators inside of his living room.
And John, okay, go ahead.
Jonathan, how far away is this home from borderline a bar?
You know, it took us about 10 minutes to get here. You know, mileage-wise, I honestly, I was helping guide our, my photographer, James Wolf here, but minutes-wise, it's about a 10-minute drive with no traffic. So very, very close, still close. Here in the city of Thousand Oaks. It's right there, yeah.
Right. So this is a place that he might have gone to, that he may be familiar with. Of course, we don't know that, but it seems that he lived in the area.
Sir, guys, bear with me. Did you know anything about Ian Long that you can share with us?
Not really. He was mostly a private person. Hardly ever saw him.
And I'm sure you heard what happened this morning, and what can you...
Just a little bit ago.
What can you tell us when you heard what happened?
Shock. Just messed up.
What can you tell us about his family and people, him living here? How long have they lived here?
At least 10 years. He lived alone with his mother. His mother... She and I were pretty good friends, see her all the time. Hardly ever saw him outside the house.
Did she ever speak about any troubles he was having?
Not to me, she did not.
Did he have a job, employment?
None that I know of.
Was that your wife who may have just left here earlier, just a few minutes ago? Did she mention, she said the words PTSD, something that he may have been having trouble?
I don't know anything about that. He was in the military for a while, and I never really talked to him. I don't know him.
Do you know if he has any siblings or anybody else who he just lives here with his parents?
Just lives here alone with his mom.
His mom.
Yeah.
So you never observed him coming and going, his demeanor?
Very seldom. He wouldn't come out of the house that much, and when I did see him drive by, I'd wave at him, he would not wave back. Private.
Not very much contact, not much eye contact.
Not with me.
Did he ever engage in any kind of hostile activity? Ever have investigators come here before?
Not that I've noticed.
Have investigators come and ask you anything?
No, I just barely got back home from work. So my wife called me and she had to go babysit, so I came home.
As a member of this community, how do you process what happened last night?
Freaky. Totally messed up. No idea.
And the fact that you lived next to this person?
Yeah.
Who's accused of doing this?
It's messed up.
Sir, what's your name?
Gareth Kreitz.
Can you spell that for me?
GarethKreitz.
Thank you, Gareth. I appreciate your time. Thank you. And guys, you heard it there live with the accused suspects, accused shooters, next door neighbor saying that he never really saw him, lived here, reportedly, but with his mom, never really came out of the house, and when he did see him, it was rare, and when he did, he didn't say anything, didn't look him in the eye, didn't give much contact at all. We heard his wife say a few minutes ago that he was maybe going through some trouble, but again, that's all unconfirmed. That's all part of the investigation, trying to lead up and trying to figure out the one question that everyone still has left this morning, and the question is why? Why would he, do something like he did last night?
Remaining, and now that we have information, NBC News citing law enforcement sources, Jonathan, they are saying the shooter is Ian Long from Ventura County. Apparently he used a Glock Model 21 that is a .45 caliber weapon, and it appears that he had been planning this for some time, according to Pete Williams with NBC. But the big question right now is the motive. Why did he lash out? Apparently all dressed in black, and according to witnesses, Daniela, he had a black face mask on.
And lots of ammo.
As well. Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, thank you for that. As we continue to look for answers, as you mentioned, and why why somebody would do something like this, but he is considered a local that is in Thousand Oaks, and that is very close to the bar. So I'm sure many people in that area, who may know him, will come out throughout the day and give us a little bit more information about who he is, as well as law enforcement.
A lot of people wondering why, and then you heard from some of the neighbors here. Again, some of this information obviously not corroborated or confirmed by police yet, as we again look at the home in Thousand Oaks, the home of the suspected gunman Ian Long, wanted for killing 12 people, I should say, this morning. This is the home here where law enforcement will apparently soon check out. Likely going to serve a search warrant to see if there's any evidence inside that leads them to a motive, because so many people wondering why this morning.
Going to see if anyone answers the door there. Investigators speaking to whoever's inside that home now, but NBC News, has confirmed through Pete Williams that Ian Long was heavily tattooed and had a weapon on him, as Adrian mentioned, and also have confirmed that he drove his mother's vehicle to the bar, and that's information we have. Also, this video that we're seeing here live, this is actually not Ian Long's home. We're told that this is a neighbor's home. Law enforcement, as they would typically do, they're going door to door, trying to get a little bit more information about the shooter, about the suspect, who he is, what did you see, what did you hear, did you know anything, and so this is just part of the investigation of getting the answers as to why this happened.
Yeah, law enforcement canvassing the neighborhood right now. NBC4's Jonathan Gonzalez speaking with some neighbors just a short time ago, and they are claiming that the gunman had a troubled past, that he might have been in the military and might have suffered from PTSD. That has not been confirmed yet from law enforcement, but certainly that is something that investigators and detectives will be looking into and asking these neighbors about, as well as his mother. According to the neighbors, the gunman lived with his mother alone in that home and very seldom came out of the home and very seldom communicated with his neighbors. They said he was very
quiet and very private as well. Okay, well, we have been following this since this happened at 11:15 this morning. We have been going straight without any commercial breaks, trying to get you all of the latest information. We have heard from witnesses, from people who said that they actually saw the shooting, that the gunman pointed the gun at them, people that went to hide, who went out windows trying to escape as well. And tragically, 11 people were shot and killed inside. And that sergeant, Ventura County Sheriff Sergeant, who went in, tried to save lives, and was shot multiple times and was also killed.
Yeah, that Sergeant Ron Healis, a 29-year veteran of law enforcement. He is being remembered as a hero. And one thing we want to point out as well is that there estimates right now somewhere between 22 and 25 people who are injured. So you have a lot of families out there right now trying to figure out if their loved ones survived, because keep in mind where this happened was a bar that was frequent. It was college night. So you had students from various universities, at least 4 different colleges and universities, who were attending college night over at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah, Thousand Oaks set up a reunification center where those family members can go get information directly from law enforcement, where also they can speak to a chaplain, get some grief counseling, get some food and some water as they wait for some information. But this is still a scene there at the actual bar, and also at this reunification center where we've been seeing our reporters speak to some of these family members who are still holding hope.
Right, and that's going to be a crime scene that's probably going to be there, remain in place for at least several more hours, if not longer. It is 7 o'clock right now, and you're watching Today in LA. We are preparing for a news conference here with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department about what has transpired overnight. It was just 7.5 hours ago that a gunman stormed into the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks and opened fire, killing 11 people inside the bar, and then a sheriff's deputy who was responding to the call of shots fired. Daniela.
All right, let's listen in right now. We are going to stay on top of this. We are not going to go to the Today Show. We're going to be live right here on NBC4. Let's listen to what the Ventura County Sheriff is going to say about the latest on this information. This sheriff says that he is very good friends with a sergeant who was killed, Sheriff Jeff Dean, very good friends with a co-worker and the sergeant who was killed, Sergeant Ron Hewells, and he broke down, got very emotional when he talked about him, and he's going to give the very latest information on this investigation that began when shots rang out at 11:15 last night at Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks. Let's listen in.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have a couple pieces of information I want to release to you. First of all, regarding the victims, we are still working to identify them and make notifications, so we will not be releasing any victim's name at this time. We have identified the suspect approximately an hour ago.
Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, California. This is the Sheriff of Ventura County. Let's listen.
1990, he was 28 years old. We've had several contacts with Mr. Long over the years, minor events such as a traffic collision. He was a victim of a battery at a local bar in 2015. In April of this year, deputies were called to his house for a subject disturbing. They went to the house, they talked to him. He was somewhat irate, acting a little irrationally. They called out our crisis intervention team, our mental health specialist, who met with him, talked to him, and cleared him, didn't feel that he was qualified to be taken under 5150, and he was left at that scene last April. Deputies are at the house now. They have secured the residence, and they're seeking a search warrant to do a thorough search of the house. The weapon used in this horrific shooting was a Glock 21 45 caliber handgun. The handgun is designed to hold in California 10 rounds and 1 in the chamber. This weapon did have a extended magazine on it. We do not know at this time how many rounds were actually in the weapon or how many rounds the magazine could actually hold, because it's still being processed as part of the evidence. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Yeah, we believe that's the only weapon that was used was that handgun.
Do you know why he did this, sir? Why he did this?
We don't. We don't know if he. Sorry. We don't know if he reloaded his weapon or not. We're still interviewing witnesses. There's not necessarily indication that happened. It appears he walked up to the scene. He shot the security guard that was standing outside. He stepped inside. It appears that he turned to the right and shot several of the other security and employees there, and then began opening fire inside the nightclub. We don't have any other details to confirm an exact chronology about what happened. We will provide that to you as we bring all of our witness statements together, and we feel more comfortable about talking about that.
Any idea of a motive?
We have no idea what the motive was at this point.
Did he live alone? Was the incident in April? Did that happen in his home?
The incident in April happened in his home, and he did purchase the weapon legally.
Was he living alone?
Despite the 5150 hole?
The 5150 hold was never placed on him. The mental health experts out there cleared him that day.
Can you elaborate on the other interactions your deputies have had with him? Is it more than just these two?
It was one. He was involved in. He received a traffic citation, and another one he was involved in a traffic collision. So pretty minor interactions. He is a veteran. He was in the United States Marine Corps.
Sheriff, we heard he may be suffering from PTSD. Did your crisis team?
I understand that was part of the discussion when the deputies went out to the call with the crisis team that felt he might be suffering from PTSD, basing that the fact he was a veteran and had been in the Corps.
Can you clarify any more on how the deputy was shot?
When Sergeant Helis and the Highway Patrol officer went in, they immediately exchanged gunfire with the suspect, and that's when Sergeant Helis was shot several times.
Do you know the date when he was discharged from the Marine Corps?
No, I have no idea about his service record.
Do you know when the suspect was shot? Was he shot himself, or how he died?
We believe he shot himself. When the officers went in and made re-entry, they found him already deceased.
Where inside the bar was he found?
How long before?
He was found inside an office just adjacent to the entry to the bar.
It's our understanding that Sergeant Helis was able to call his wife right before he ran into the bar.
Sergeant Helis was having a conversation with his wife on the phone, as he does several times during the shift, and said to her, "Hey, I got to go handle the call. I love you. I'll talk to you later."
Did the gunman say anything to any of the victims?
How much time expired from the first shot?
Not as far as we know at this point. He could have, but we don't know.
Any indication that he may have been targeting employees of the establishment?
Now, there's no indication that he targeted the employees, or we haven't found any correlation. We'll probably know more after we execute the search warrant at his house, that maybe there was a motive for this particular night, but at this point, we have no information leading to that at all.
Sure, the security was different accounts from different witnesses of what this guy was wearing. Can you tell us what, based on what you already know, what he was wearing and his direction of travel once he got here?
All I know about his direction of travel is he went in and he turned right and fired at the employees that were standing there. He was... My best recollection from 7 hours ago, he was wearing a black sweater, and I don't remember what color pants he was wearing. I apologize. No, not when we went inside. He was not.
How long before he was shot?
2.5 minutes.
Did he use smoke bombs?
We haven't confirmed whether he used a smoke bomb, but we have a couple witnesses that have alluded to that.
So, Sheriff, there's no reason to believe that there was anything wrong with this person before this happened.
Well, I mean, you could say there's no reason to believe it, but, I mean, obviously he had something going on in his head that would cause him to do something like this. So he obviously had some sort of issues.
Is he a Thousand Oaks resident?
No.
Was the security guard that was shot?
Do you know of any pre-existing relation
No.
to this bar?
He was not armed.
No.
Was anybody armed in the bar that we know of?
Not that we know of.
Is he from Thousand Oaks?
Do you know of any pre-existing relationship with this bar? Why this particular location?
There's no connection as of yet.
Do we know how this ended? Witnesses, whether he just did something himself or something how this happened?
Yeah, we don't know. We know that once Sergeant Helis and the Highway Patrol officer engaged him, the shooting inside stopped. So we don't know if he then went back in the office and shot himself, or how that really transpired.
And the suspect lives in Thousand Oaks?
He lives in Newbury Park.
Sheriff, why do you think this keeps happening in the United States of America and not in comparable rich democracies?
That's a pretty challenging question. I think we see unfortunate, horrific actions that happen all over the world, and I don't know if it happens more in the United States or doesn't. I'd have to read the stats.
It does.
Well,
why do you think that is?
Well, I don't know. If I knew the answer to that, I'd do something to stop it.
Can you talk about the training that Sergeant Hewitt and the other members of law enforcement have for an active shooter situation just like this, and how that helped when they arrived on scene?
Well, as we talked about at the wee hours of the morning, post the Columbine shooting, how we approach active shooters changed completely. Instead of waiting and surrounding and bringing our SWAT team, the officers are to immediately engage and try to stop the target and stop the killing. And that's exactly what happened here.
Do you believe they helped save lives?
There's no doubt that they saved lives by going in there and engaging with the suspect. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know how many people there. I've heard anywhere from 150 to 200 people in there. So this, not that by any means the loss of 13 lives is good, but it could have been much, much worse.
How many people were engaged, and how many people were people that were in the bar?
I don't know.
Is it your belief that this was random?
Well, I don't think it was random. He's a resident of this area, and I would have to. Common sense would speculate that there's some reason he went here. He probably knew about it, but I don't think it was just. It's not like he was driving down the freeway and decided I'm going to get off here.
We've been listening to a live press conference from Ventura County Sheriff Jeff Dean, who has just identified officially the alleged shooter here, Ian David Long. They said he was a veteran, a former Marine, 28 years old, and police say he's the one who walked into this bar in Thousand Oaks, California, late last night, started shooting, killing 12 people, and then police believe turning the gun on himself.
During that news conference there with the sheriff, we learned that he used a modified .45 Glock, according to the sheriff there. Also heard from the sheriff that apparently police responded to his home earlier this year in April. Let's bring in NBC's Miguel Almaguer. He has been on the scene all night again, just after 7 o'clock there on the West Coast, Miguel. Folks in that neighborhood waking up to quite the tragedy.
Guys, we're learning more about the suspect, obviously, here, that 29-year-old veteran. We also know more about the play-by-play as this was unfolding. Those first 911 calls came in just after 11:20 p.m. A California Highway Patrol officer and a 29-year veteran of the Ventura County Sheriff's Department both arrived on scene. They heard gunshots. They decided to enter the building. That's when that veteran Sheriff's Department deputy was shot. He was killed on scene. The CHP Highway Patrol officer pulled him out, called for backup. More backup arrived. That's when several extra officers, including the SWAT team, then went inside the club where they found the gunman dead. Again, we know 12 people were killed, including that sheriff's deputy. The gunman was also later found dead. Of course, the motive is the big question here on scene. Investigators don't know why he chose this location and what was his motive, guys.
All right, Miguel Almaguer for us there. Miguel, thank you.
We'll continue to follow this breaking story out of Thousand Oaks, California this morning. This has been an NBC News special report. Most of you will return to more of today.
Done. And as I've said several times, he went in there to save people and made the ultimate sacrifice. No, I don't believe so. I mean, I
我们始终不扮高深，我们力求直播传真。